Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a bit of an extension really from the previous essay, but I'd like to talk about how some laws are passed, especially laws that take away the citizens' legal rights and turn due legal process and the rule of law on its head, how those things pass through the legislative bodies and the parliaments, pass through without any debate or any review. They're just tabled. And is there any dissenting vote? It's called do any dissent? No, there's no sound, and so it's passed. Not passed because people support it. Maybe only one person voiced support, but no one actually votes against it. But there's nothing. It's just tabled and it goes straight through. Now that means all the parliamentarians, all the politicians have been told this is what you will do when this bill comes up for a vote. You will do nothing. You will say nothing. You will not ask to debate it. You will not discuss it. You'll not ask questions. You will just sit there quietly as it goes through. So they're being given permission effectively on what the parliamentarians that you elect, your representatives, are being told by the executive or the party machine what they're allowed to vote for and what they're not. So just I was going over some parliamentary records a little while ago, and on the same day there was a law to be passed that would mean that men who'd been accused of paternity, but where there was no proof or evidence, that the government could take collection action up to including imprisonment of these men, even though, again, there was no evidence or proof or no verdict in a court of law or anything like that. So that's a monstrous suspension of people's human rights, that there's no decision against it, that there's no evidence at all, yet they can just arbitrarily be fined and imprisoned. Now, the bill provided for that if the person disagreed with it, they could take it to court as a private citizen, but the full resources of the government would pursue them and take away their legal rights. But if they opposed it, they had to do so in their own time and expense, even though all their money may have already been taken away. So, and they weren't eligible for legal aid to fight this. Any other person who's penniless, who wants to fight something the government does, they can get legal aid, but not this. So it's a monstrous overturning of basic legal rights. But there you go. And no debate, no committee reviewed it or discussed it or anything like that, just went through. So, but on the same day, there was a new law about the size of the fishing nets that recreational fishermen could use off a certain strip of area of coastline. So how big the fishing nets are going to be, not so much how big the nets are, but the gap in the nets, whether the gap should be, if you look at a patchwork of say rope or twine or something like that, that the gap in them had to be less than 6 inches or less than 3 inches, that sort of thing. So various sizes there. Now there was various committees, plural, that were looking at this, both in the region and in the federal parliament. It was a big issue. Numerous reports, experts were being called on. The parliamentary debate was vigorous and endless. It went on pretty much for the rest of the day. The most obscure point of law was being argued. Everyone did the fishermen's rights. The fishermen have legal rights. Boat owners have legal rights. We can't impinge on those legal rights. It's our duty as lawmakers not to impinge on the. Well, hold on a minute. Hey, hold on. Not 5 minutes ago, you just allowed a bill to go through which just arbitrarily suspended the rule of law and due legal process for people who have been accused, not proven, accused of paternity. That's all. So how How do you reconcile this? Suddenly citizens' legal rights mean everything, but 5 minutes ago they meant absolutely nothing. So that got me looking at certain laws that pass, that whenever laws that take away your legal rights, and it could be emergency powers of the executive during an alleged pandemic, it could be laws to do with apprehended violence orders to combat alleged rape epidemics or college rape epidemics or those sorts of things. But wherever they go through, wherever they're voted on, the final piece of legislation seems to attract no debate. There's propaganda thrown around beforehand in the media, and politicians come outside of the parliament to make all sorts of frothy, righteously indignant speeches, telling lie after lie after lie after lie. But other than that, the legislation actually takes away the legal rights of the individual. That goes through without debate, without discussion, just sails right on through the chamber. From the time they table that bill, assuming they haven't buried it along with other ones, by the time they table that piece of legislation to go in the House, it's moments later it's gone through and become law. That's how these things are done. And there's a series of sort of creeping effects. And I'll tie this sort of back into how the globalists are functioning and using the laws to take away our legal rights. So, and I'll just digress for a moment there. So when you go and complain to a school, education board about your children being taught how to hate white people and how to all run around saying that they're transgender at 5 years old. I mean, if you go to a school board and complain, you by your very presence there and your complaint, you've committed violence. If you've committed violence, because the definition of violence is that you've complained, if you've committed violence, then and you're white, then you're a white supremacist. If you're a white supremacist, then you're also a terrorist. If you're a terrorist, then you're also a neo-Nazi, and if you're a neo-Nazi, then you're Hitler, and you have to be thrown in goddamn prison without any legal rights, because Hitler doesn't deserve legal rights, and damn it, neither do you. So this is how the sort of the creep factor occurs on this. They're bringing in legislation, they're changing definitions, and adding new definitions to new legislation, but it's not getting debated. There's no politicians going to say, "Hey, hold on, this is a crazy way of taking away people's legal rights. It's utter nonsense. I'm not going to vote for it. It has no place in a parliamentary democracy, and I'm not going to vote for it." But that doesn't happen. So these laws just go through. And if you look at effectively, it's administrative. It's barely a legal process. It's really just an administrative. The executive deciding, and then it just sails on through without, as I say, without debate or vote or anything like that. There are no nays, and so that's it. It becomes law. So our elected representatives stay silent while our legal rights are taken away. But if you look at things like, say alimony and child support and the like, then the laws from administrative basis have been added to and added to and added to, so that the people that they want to target are boxed in so tight they've got nowhere to go. They've either got to jump off the cliff or go along with it. There isn't, which is really how things are going now with things like vaccines and boosters. There's similarity in the pattern there, that they were successful before using that pattern and that approach to box people in and condition them to accepting this fate, so that they'll do this all in a greater good. So this, where did sort of child support begin? Well, child support began with the notion that men were abandoning their families. It was, and because of that abandonment, the mother who's left with the children should get some sort of financial assistance. So that abandonment was viewed, quite rightly by the way, viewed as an illegality, something an unacceptable sort of behaviour, and so that the government would go after someone like that and say, hey, you got to help out financially here. And if it had stayed there, then that would have been fine. For already, back in the day, the propaganda was that it was Maserati, waterfront, Maserati driving, waterfront mansion, yacht, private Learjet, guy, Hollywood superstar on gazillions of dollars a year, who was refusing to help out the poor little woman with the 50 kids. So, it was never that. That was the propaganda. That was all bullshit. Effectively, what happened is when the Great Society came along, Lyndon Johnson and welfare benefits being offered, particularly to black people, the benefits were such that they were, sometimes not far away from the sort of money that a black worker might a black man might make at his job, and so there was very little incentive for women to hang around with a guy. Why I have to put up with him when I can get the same amount of money, maybe even better if I've got enough kids, from the government handouts. So that these handouts created a situation where it delivered instability to particularly black families, and then so the men were absent, and then the government said, well, we've got to do something about that. We caused the problem, but they didn't recognise the problem that they caused, or didn't accept or admit it, and so they then went chasing after the black men for abandoning the family. We're probably still somewhat okay now, but then divorce law escalated into keeping the house, that if and here's some cases, she decides to become a lesbian and off she goes, but if she leaves the relationship herself and just goes off with the lesbian lover, then she's got nothing. So, but if she gets rid of him, then she can keep the house, the car, the furniture, the kids, the alimony, the child support, the whole 9 yards, and have the lesbian relationship as well. And so she can effectively kick him out. Now, under those sort of situations, the government says, well, she's a lesbian, so she's lower in the social pecking order. You're a straight white male, so we're going to make you pay her. But wait a minute, that's her life choice. If she wants to make that choice, nothing, okay, fine. It's a bit disruptive to everybody, but that's what you want to do. But why should someone else be made to pay for it? And that's how the law began to creep into areas where so his legal rights are being taken away. He had no choice in the matter. She decides to go and get into a lesbian relationship, but why should he pay for it? But the government will force him to pay, and under threat of imprisonment, by the way, if he doesn't. So that through all sorts of minor amendments and so on, the government increased its power and increased its power to go after these sort of guys. And it was even the case where the Americans would specifically enter a clause into a trade treaty with Australia or Britain or Canada or Caribbean islands, where they specifically enter a clause in the trade treaty that the local legal system would go after men who allegedly owed alimony back in the United States. So let's suppose the wife leaves to take a lesbian relationship and so on. Guy loses everything and he's got to pay alimony and child support and so on. He thinks, screw this. I'm going to move to another country where I can start my life again because my life's ruined now. They've taken everything I own and I'm still got to pay, all because she wants to go off and become a lesbian, which is, if she wants to do that, fine, but I don't accept that she can take everything and I have to subsidise her for 20 years into the future. So he goes to another country, but the so determined were the ideological warriors in the United States that no man must escape, not one. No man must escape. They must be hunted down. That instead of being a set of laws to chase black men abandoning their families, and that was an issue. Instead of that, it then became a way of destroying white middle-class families, and that was delivered and handled with relish. But all these laws and all these changes, again, they all went through just very quietly on a nod, whereas things that we would think would be no big deal, like fishing nets, or why would you need to debate that for days on end and have numerous committees and experts? That's a bullshit thing. That's politicians pretending they're doing something and they're not. But the far more important issue of suspending the legal rights of millions of citizens, that goes through without a murmur. So we're in that sort of situation now where rights and our legal rights are being just very quietly chipped away. But the ultimate objective is to box us in tight as tight. So there's nowhere to go, and we just have to accept the inevitable. And I see that same pattern unfolding now with this alleged health epidemic. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.